Amanda and I had just crossed the Louisiana border heading out of Texas when we needed to make a pit stop. It was sunset the Sunday after Thanksgiving, 2016, just a few weeks after the presidential election, and the interstate was snarled up with cars heading home. As we inched our way to the nearest off-ramp, I stared into the distance. Now, when many people think of South Louisiana, they conjure up romantic images from Cajun culture. A room full of people dancing the two-step, friends gathered around a table full of boiled crawfish, or riding in a boat through an otherworldly swamp. That is not what I was looking at. This stretch of the I-10 between Beaumont and Lake Charles is littered with strip malls, casinos, cheap motels, oil refineries, and hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurants with names like Casa Margarita. The only images I was conjuring up were of smokestacks releasing pollutants, hands pulling down slot machine arms, and day-old meat pies just shriveling under heat lamps. When we eventually broke out of the gridlock, we found all the gas stations were crawling with antsy drivers. There was nowhere to park, so we just kept driving until we found what I now believe to be the spiritual center of seedy Louisiana roadside pit stops, the Border Town Casino and Smoker's Paradise. The main entrance was flanked by 2 palm trees and 3 flags, the United States of America, the state of Louisiana, and Best Western. There was also a 10-foot-tall replica of the Statue of Liberty standing next to the park bench, but apparently nobody was allowed to sit there because a 5-foot-tall fence surrounded both the statue and the bench. As we drove past the steady stream of truckers and stressed-out families, we discovered a village of ice that offered a discount smokers outlet, a casino, a pool hall, drive-through daiquiris, and if you needed a break from smoking, gambling, drinking, and playing pool, there was a hotel, an RV park, a Subway sandwich shop, and for good measure, a kid swing set. If you couldn't have fun here, it was totally your fault. Now, all Amanda and I needed to do was use the bathroom, so we headed over to the main building. And as we walked up, I noticed the fenced-off area where 5 men smoked cigarettes as they sat on benches or leaned against the railing, just a few feet from massive islands of gas pumps. These smokers looked dejected and half dead, like they were waiting their turn to become fossil fuel. Inside Paradise, I found an angry clerk, also smoking. She was surrounded by cartons of cigarettes stacked against mirrored walls, and her exhaust drifted towards aisles packed with the kind of knickknacks that only exist at truck stops. There were tiny gilded wooden figurines in the form of mythological beasts, rock candy, snow globes, purple and gold cowboy hats, peanut brittle, Confederate flag magnets, shell necklaces, crystal ballerinas, shot glasses for every state in the nation, a collection of John Wayne memorial plates, and dozens of metal and wooden crucifixes that could fit on a keychain or hang in a rearview mirror. Amanda even discovered a gold-made jacket with animal print lining. On the back, spelled out in black sequins, was the word trinket. As I entered the Grecian-themed bathroom, I found black marble sinks, golden faucets, and a large fountain filled with ceramic mermaids squirting streams of water from their breasts. I realized then that the Smoker's Paradise used to be a strip club. Back outside, Amanda and I walked around to stretch our legs. We were just about to leave when I noticed a young woman crossing the parking lot with a collie huddled in her arms. As I wondered why she was carrying the dog instead of walking it, a man standing in front of the casino started barking at her. The young woman, of course, ignored him because that's what you're supposed to do when a strange man barks at you in a public place. She scurried away, but he followed her, barking more loudly. The woman continued to ignore him as she made a beeline for her car, and when the man finally stopped, he was standing in front of us. I couldn't stop staring at this barking man. He was as animated as a 30-year-old, but had the splotchy skin of a man 85 or 90. He wore gleaming white tennis shoes, a blue sports coat with a plaid shirt, and a baseball cap covered in military decorations that read Army Veteran in bold letters. Everything, including his skin, it seems, clean and pressed. Maybe because of the tight, almost brittle skin on his face, his eyes seemed to pop out. They were glassy and bulbous and flitted around robotically. He checked the time on his fancy neon sports watch and pulled out a Zippo to ignite the thin cigar that was dangling from his mouth. And then, instead of barking, he spoke. "How much is gas here? Is it cheaper than Chevron?" I told him that we just stopped to use the restroom, so he didn't know. But he was so eager to talk that it didn't matter that I couldn't answer his question. Just by looking at him, it seemed like I'd put a quarter in an animatronic man at an amusement park. He said, "My name is JR. I'm an oil man." This, of course, made me think of J.R. Ewing, the infamous oil man from the 1980s TV show Dallas. There was no way that he was really an oil man named JR. He probably just thought it was funny to say that to the waitresses in the casino, the desk clerks at the motel, or strangers like Amanda and I. He asked where we were from. New Orleans, we said. This prompted him to tell us he went to law school in Houston, but that during summers, he used to work the front desk at a hotel in New Orleans that his dad managed. When I asked him if it was one of the historic hotels in the French Quarter, he said, "No, it was a La Quinta Inn next to the Denny's on the I-10. This guy was a creature of this interstate. He probably spent his whole life traversing it. He proudly stated that he was a member of the Petroleum Club of Lafayette. I told him that I had once gone to the Morgan City Shrimp and Petroleum Festival. That's true. He seemed impressed and then bragged that the previous night, he'd had a $300 shot of King Louis XIII cognac. It wasn't very good, he said, but he tipped $20 anyway, 'cause he could. Around that point, I noticed he was standing next to two cars, a beat-up 1990 sedan and a sleek new Nissan Altima. I started to wonder, what if the sedan is his? What if he lives in the neighborhood and when he gets drunk, he pretends he's a rich oil man? What if he used to be one of the guys in the smoker's playpen, but got some nice threads and a new attitude and just never looked back? Or maybe he was a rich oil guy. Maybe he used to smoke cigars in limos while driving through the Texas prairie to check on his wells. JR started talking about L'Auberge Casino, one of the largest in the region, and I pieced together his story. The day before, he'd driven there from his home in Houston, not realizing how bad the traffic would be on the way back. He got tired of being stuck and pulled off the interstate, and that's how he ended up drinking and gambling in Border Town. He claimed he was on his way to see his daughter off Highway 105 near Beaumont. She lived near a real country club, one that was actually in the country, which was where, he said, oil men like him like to go. He stumbled. He'd had one too many drinks, and he said, "I guess I'll let you go." But like most people over age 70, he kept talking. "You ever hear of Virgin Atlantic? Richard Branson? I'm going to be the next Richard Branson, you know. When I was 10 years old, my grandma took me aside and said, 'Boy, don't ever retire.' And I asked why, because 10-year-old boys are full of questions. And she said, 'See that rusted old pickup down the driveway there? You know why it's rusted? 'Cause it don't move no more. Rust don't sleep.'" I wasn't sure if that made sense. JR then said, "Well, I'm off to Lake Charles tonight, Baton Rouge tomorrow." "I thought you were going west," I said. He chuckled, "I guess I'm going everywhere." He stared down at the concrete for a spell and then looked right at me. "What's your name?" "Brent," I said. "Brent crude, low density, low sulfur." I must have looked puzzled because he explained, "Two of the most popular types of crude oil are West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude. WTI has an API gravity of 39.6 degrees and a sulfur content of 0.24%. Brent has an API gravity of 38 degrees and a sulfur content of 0.4%. A barrel of Brent is down to almost $46 a barrel. That's why gas is so cheap. You take care of that pretty little lady of yours." He pulled out his keychain and pressed a button. The door to the Nissan Altima unlocked. The lights turned on, the windows rolled down, and the engine revved. JR, tipsy, stepped in and drove off. As he passed the smoker's playpen, the smokers stared him down. They didn't know him, but they knew guys like him. The smokers worked for guys like JR, but he didn't even notice their existence. He was in another echelon. He had probably fought in World War II. All the rest of us had ever done was fight with customer service reps from MasterCard. I watched him speed off past the Statue of Liberty and disappear down the road in pursuit of his next jackpot. Now Amanda stepped away, but I stood there frozen. My eyes flitted around like JR's. In the distance, a woman yelled into the handset of what must have been the last working payphone in the state. She was on the verge of tears. And not far away, a trucker blasting talk radio kept banging on something inside his cabin over and over again. A general unease crept up on me. It was as if it was no longer far-fetched to imagine all the smokers in the playpen flicking their cigarettes towards the gas station and blowing this whole place up. It didn't feel like it was just this gas station though. This place was just one of millions like it on a national map. Between the summer and the presidential election, it felt like we'd all become frenzied animals, more anxious than ever before. To my side, a family in an SUV slowed down, approaching me very cautiously. I realized that I was blocking the way to the gas pumps, staring off into the distance with what was probably a really strange expression on my face. It was hard to believe I had slipped into such a reflective state when all I wanted to do was just stop and use the bathroom. I quickly got out of the way and joined Amanda, who was waiting for me in the car. It was pretty dark by then. We got back on the road and just slogged along in the traffic with everybody else. In the distance, I could see fires burning in refineries. You could smell the chemicals. Right outside my window, cars inched forward impatiently. The road felt like one strand in a dysfunctional nervous system. There was a Lincoln town car booming bass and honking its horn, a woman pecking away at her smartphone, an elderly man gazing into oblivion, a young couple in a heated argument, and a hairy man eating a meat pie.